And so we wanted to, over the past year, really figure out a way to document the stories of the people who work in our restaurants, who come through our front doors every day. And that starts today with this documentary. We also know that beyond our crew, there are so many stories about McDonald's that connect us. I'm sure you all remember your first time going to McDonald's. I'm sure you have your favorite meal. I'm sure you remember asking your parents if they had McDonald's money. And they say, no, we got food at home. The fries aren't as good at home, I would say. You need to have them at McDonald's. So again, that is why we embarked on the journey to tell these stories about the experience that you have in connection with our brand. And so these stories are called Stories from America's Dining Room. It is the stories of real people who you'll see today, their journeys, the positive community influence, and again, the subtle yet impactful way that McDonald's has played in their journeys. And so the film that you're gonna see today is called the Napkin Playbook. The subject and star of our film is here, all the way from Akron. So we'll meet him in a few minutes. And it is a story about a meeting of the minds at a McDonald's around a table in our hall, and a plan that became a pathway for opportunity for so many youth in Akron and across the Midwest. Our screening today will also be followed by a panel and Q&A. So as you watch our documentary, please write down your questions, make a mental note, because you'll be able to ask them of our directorial team as well as our subject and star. And we hope you enjoy what you'll see today. And we're so excited to get your feedback. So let's watch. What a powerful story, right? I wanted to make sure we saw the statistics of Clarence's impact at the end along with his team. And it all started on a napkin at McDonald's, and we're so honored to have played just a small role in the meeting place, the meeting of the minds, to 40 years of impact that you've been able to have in your community in Akron and beyond. We're going to move into our Q&A. Again, I asked you all earlier to think about your questions, write them down, make a mental note, and we have a few prepared. But first, I want to introduce our esteemed panel. So Kevin Wilson Jr., our director. I want to say, come on up, Kevin. There was a North Carolina A&T meet and greet. I even had some folks.
Aggie, right?
Yes, some LinkedIn tags over the weekend. I'm glad to see your community out to celebrate you. But Kevin is an award-winning, Oscar-nominated director. Wow. From North Carolina. He's now based in New Jersey. And in addition to directing the Napkin Playbook, he has directed several branded documentaries and campaigns, some of which I know you all have seen, including Widen the Screen, the breakout campaign calling for Hollywood to address the stereotypical images of Black people in film. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Clarence Kaiser, our star, is our featured storyteller in the Napkin Playbook from Akron, Ohio. The Midwest Football Classic co-founder is a community leader who has spent over 4 decades involved in youth sports as a coach, director, and head commissioner for the Akron Parent Pee Wee Association. He also served as an ambassador for the Northeast Ohio with the USA Football Organization, promoting mentorship, framework, and a love for the game. Coming up, Coach Clarence. Yes, please stand for Coach Clarence. Thank you. And last but not least, Naen Mundo, an award-winning director and editor that has directed one of McDonald's short films. Her film is coming out in just a few months, later this fall. She is based in LA, and she has directed ESPN's 30 for 30, Rowdy Ronda Rousey, the franchise's most viewed short, as well as edited BET's documentary short, In Her Element. Naen, thank you so much for being part of our project. Okay, I am going to jump into our questions and first want to say thank you again. So we know what you all are thinking. McDonald's, documentary shorts, doesn't quite add up, right? So as I mentioned, this is a first initiative for our brand. We know we have never done this, but we felt that we needed to take an intentional approach in bringing on fantastic partners like Breakwater, like Kevin, like Nadine, fantastic stories like Clarence's to talk about the 70 years that we've had at a brand. But I also want to ask our panelists, when you got the first call to be part of this as subject or to help direct these stories, what were your initial thoughts? And be honest with us.
I was excited. I love making documentaries. It gives you an opportunity to really get into a community and to find the heart of the story and find the heart of the people in that community. And so when I got the call and I was told about Mr. Kaiser and his story and what he had done and in his community for the young folks, I connected with it on a visceral level because I had my own Clarence Kaiser where I'm from in Durham, North Carolina, who's responsible for me being a filmmaker. And so the first thing I did after the call was had a nice long conversation on the phone with Mr. Kaiser, and he hooked me, and went to Akron and got into the community and got to know the folks, and I saw a really beautiful story and really beautiful people there that I was excited to help bring to the world.
Thank you. Clarence, how about you? Initial thoughts?
When I first got the call, I thought it was a scam. Once I realized it was something that was really true, I got on the phone with Mike and Andre and told them, I can't believe that what we did on a napkin 25 years later, they decided that it was important enough to do a story. Once I met Kevin, I was gung-ho to make this happen.
How about you, Nadine?
I think the first thing that I saw actually from the creative brief that kind of resonated with me was just the idea of this town square and community hub. And so the film that I directed, which you all will see, is about an Olympic long jumper, Quenisha Burks. And so I just thought it was like a great through line because we're all shaped so much by our community, our environment. They're like, what allow us to dream? And so I thought, oh, that's like a perfect kind of through line to have in the film, especially about an Olympian, because who doesn't want to know how an Olympian is formed?
Exactly. I know. We're so excited to see Quenisha's story soon. The next question I have, and I want to preface it by sharing a little bit more about me, if you all don't mind. So we have formally titled, as you all can see, this 5 docuseries, Stories from America's Dining Room, about the intersection of McDonald's and American culture, and how we hope that McDonald's serves as a community resource. And so when you just talked about Coach Clarence, I actually thought about my Coach Thomas, and how I used to get with my track team after school on Chicago's South Side at a McDonald's. That McDonald's happens to be the first McDonald's owned by an African American in our system. And so again, the layers of storytelling that we are able to tell, and that McDonald's owner operator is Herman Petty. He actually will have, if you think about the Obama Center that is coming in Chicago South Side in a few months, he actually will have a portion of that honoring his legacy, as his location is just up the road from the Obama Center. And so when you think about just McDonald's role in your lives or in the role that you're trying to illuminate in your films, can you just talk about that a little bit for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so much of what I do is because of the community that I grew up in, and McDonald's actually did play a role in that. When I was a kid, in first grade, second grade, McDonald's was, they had this thing where they would say, if you get on the A honor roll, you can come get free Happy Meals. And so everybody was like, I want to get straight A's because I want to go get a free Happy Meal. It's the only time we can go to McDonald's because our parents didn't have McDonald's money like that. And so we're like, I want a Happy Meal. And so it really encouraged folks, to stay in the books. And it was like a small way that it brought the community together. So it was like that. And then when I got to high school, Wendell Tabb was my mentor's name. He was my Clarence Kaiser. I went to high school in the hood, and he built a 1,200-seat theater, on his own, and took us to Kenya and took us to London, so that we can kind of see what life was like outside of our community. And McDonald's aided in those fundraising efforts when we were traveling as well. And so when this story came to me, and I met Mr. Kaiser, and I was able to see, firsthand the impact that he had and the role that McDonald's played in it. You know, the intersection of those things were, they were so seamless and it made sense. So I think, McDonald's in general, not to like harp on the brand, but like, it is a part of our community. Like that's why I love this Stories from America's Dining Room. I hadn't thought of it until you all put that up there. But it was like, wow, they are a central part of the community that I was born into, even when I didn't know it.
I know you had the meeting place right at McDonald's, but just talk about just intersection of your life and the brand as well.
McDonald's in my life started when I was a kid, and I can remember my mother taking us there, and we could get the 15-cent hamburger.
Okay.
And I got bold one day and asked for the double cheeseburger or the fillet of fish. That didn't go over too well. So it's ironic that when we had this meeting of the minds, it was 5 strangers, and it would just so happen that Harry had a relative that worked at McDonald's in Cleveland on St. Clair. If you're familiar with Cleveland, that area is pretty lively, I'll put it that way. So we were all thinking about going to St. Clair for a meeting about football, but it was close to Collinwood High School where we were going to hold the classic when we came to Cleveland. So that's how we got into McDonald's.
Thank you. How about you, Nadine?
So the storyteller that's featured in the film I directed is Quenisha Burks. She's a long jumper, an Olympic athlete, highly decorated athlete, and so McDonald's was her first job in high school, and that's really when her Olympic dreams really solidified. And she tells a really funny story in the film where she starts getting recruited by college coaches because she was like next level good, like insanely talented. And she says that she would just kind of make them wait in the lobby, even though they're offering like a full scholarship. And she was just like, I gotta salt these fries and take the orders. And she actually, like, even once she was offered a full scholarship from Alabama University, which is a Division I school, she continued working at McDonald's, and everybody was like, why are you working there? Like, and I just think it really speaks to the work ethic and like integrity that was built while she was there, and just that she has inherently. And we all have our first job. I didn't work at a McDonald's as a first job, but it definitely wasn't like a glamorous job. But there's really a lesson in just like giving your all, no matter what step you are in your life. And I think that just her working there and continuing to work there until she graduated high school really speaks to that. And I just think it's really great. And yeah.
Yes, we're so proud to have Quenisha and so many people part of our 1 and 8, as we chatted about earlier, but also too in her film, just to get deeper storytelling about the skills and opportunities that you can have through your first job. And a lot of that we realize as we reflect back, maybe not in the moment, right? But I love that you shine a light on that. Clarence, so I got a preview of a little bit of where the Midwest Classic and your organization is now. And I know there's so much exciting news on the horizon. But when you think back, what do you feel like was the most crucial step that you took? What was the, as I like to say, difference maker or most instrumental part in making that vision come to a reality?
I think what was most important is when we called this meeting with 5 guys that we really didn't know each other, but to get into a McDonald's and sit and we started sharing our vision that although we were from 3 different states, 5 different cities, we all had the same vision to do something positive for the children. Most meetings you go to, there's always at least 1 or 2 in the room that want to take the lead, call the shots, and it was incredible that the 5 of us got together and no one wanted to be the kingpin. Everybody had ideals, we put them together, and it took off from there. And like I say, I don't know to this day how we pulled that off.
Thank you, Clarence. An alignment around a collective vision, I think. It's really important. So question for you, Kevin. You have directed several branded documentaries, we heard earlier, Oscar nominated, about amplifying diverse stories, which I think is most important. How did you, when you heard about Clarence, how did you approach the storytelling? Maybe what makes this project unique for some of the other things that you've done?
Well, the first thing I wanted to do was go to Akron, and I specifically wanted to get there before the rest of the crew got there, before we turned the cameras on, and really just get out into the community and get to know people. And so I flew in really early, and one of the young men that you saw, Mike Bickley, he drove me around the community. We spent time, we ate, he introduced me to folks in the community. And the reason why I wanted to do that, and the reason why that's an approach in all of my work, is just because, I believe in the characters and the people guiding the storytelling, as opposed to me coming in and imposing what I think the story is onto them. And what I found was a story that was a little bit different than what I thought it was, I found really rich relationships between Mike Bickley and Mr. Kaiser, and between Mr. Kaiser and the other young men in the community as well. And so I wanted to do that just because I wanted people to feel the heart, of the community and the heart of Mr. Kaiser and everyone else who was involved in this particular moment, And so that, I think, was made easy just because Mr. Kaiser and the folks in Akron are just beautiful people, And so a lot of times for me, I'm just stepping out of the way. I'm just a guy with a camera in the corner, and catching whatever is in the world naturally.
Thank you. Nadine, I want to ask you a similar question, maybe a broader storytelling approach. I know we have Quenisha's story coming up, but what was the first action that you took when you got this brief?
In terms of the approach, I think what's, really unique about Quenisha is that she is actively competing. I think she's at the trials right now for world championships. So there's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns. It's different than somebody who's kind of retired looking back. You kind of already get a whole, picture of their story. And with an athlete, there's just that unknown, will she win a competition? Will she lose? There's injury. Will she even have time for us to film? And that can be scary when you're approaching a film, all these unknowns. But me personally, I really lean into that because I've always found in work with documentaries that those discoveries that you don't necessarily know, you can't really plan out. It's those discoveries along the way that end up kind of making the film. And so I think I just approached it of really embracing that. For instance, we were slated to film with her in the beginning of the year, and then she had an injury, so we had to wait. And it was this is really hard. But then she came back from her injury, and then we were able to film. So it's just kind of, I lean into that. Even though it's kind of scary, I think it's what's kind of makes the emotional stakes really high and compelling.
Yeah, thank you. Clarence, I want to toss this last question to you, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. Can you just talk about what this means to the city of Akron and what this means to you personally?
To me personally, it's an honor that McDonald's and Breakwater Studio and Kevin Wilson took the initiative to see our journey as something important to share with each and every one of you. I hope that from that film, if there's individuals that work with children, take it to heart that we can make a difference. Myself, as a group, representing Andre and Mike and George. Harry has passed away, but he's in our heart. We seen something that we had to do for our community and our kids. And once I met up with Kevin and we started talking, I'll admit there was a couple times that it got emotional between two of us and we had to take a break. But the story in Akron has really excited the community as they watch us doing the filming of the documentary. And I want to share with you, if you see some young guys and myself sitting in a McDonald's somewhere in Cleveland or in Akron with a napkin, we're ready to restart the Midwest Classic, and that is our goal.
And I think you mentioned you have your 501c3 designation secured. You have some things on the docket, some screenings locally coming up. What other ways can this audience support some of your work?
Good question. We are planning on putting together a retreat. I'm working with some young men that's coaching and that came up through the program. My nephew, who played for the Tennessee Titans, now he's a defensive line coach for the University of Toledo. We got together and we got our 501c3. It will be called Champion Circle, and that's who will be the lead on putting the Midwest Classic back together, along with Mike and Andre. And what we are planning on doing is showing this documentary to the city of Akron, mainly the mayor and other people, to see what we accomplished and what we can do again. And we plan on doing that when it is officially released. And from there, we're going to solicit all the help and corporations, whoever we might get. Hopefully McDonald's will be there.
Okay.
And get the ball rolling again.
Okay, so I do want to open up to the audience. I know we have some members of the team floating with mics, but we hope you are as excited about this as we are. As I mentioned, this is the first time we have done this as a brand, and we're so intentional about being here at the Vineyard to showcase this work. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Oh, the gentleman is in the second row.
Good afternoon, everybody. Is this on? This is on. Okay, Coach Kaiser, quick question. Well, two-part. One, do you still have the napkins? And two, are they memorialized?
Could you repeat that?
Do you still have the napkins that you guys wrote the ideas on?
No, we don't. I wish I did.
I know we saw a bit of your kind of record keeping towards the end, some photos of a global superstar athlete at the end. I won't mention his name, but I know you did pretty good record keeping along the way.
You're speaking on LeBron James. And in Akron, a lot of you know him as the #1 player in the NBA. We know him as the football player. And a little story on LeBron, when people always want to make that comparison. He took a dare his junior and senior year in high school from Romeo Travis, one of his playmates that played basketball on the Fab Five, as they called themselves. And in that dare, he told him to come out and play football, which he hadn't played football since Pee Wee's. To make a long story short, he made All-State as a wide receiver his junior and senior year. Okay.
Wow. Any other questions? Oh, one in the back, and then we'll go to the front. To you, yeah.
Yes. Question for you, Nubia.
Yes.
How did you find the stories that you wanted to highlight?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. So as I mentioned, we tackled this project over a year now. There were probably upwards of 120 different stories that we could have told about McDonald's impact on people, of community. And so when we thought about the dimensions of storytelling that we can take, Clarence's story, Quenisha's story, we have 3 additional about an operator in our system, a general manager, the importance of technology access and what we can provide. We felt like these were the most compelling. So to go from 120 to 5 is really hard. But I want to say Breakwater has been a huge partner in this work. over the past year, and not just thinking about what's the most compelling story to tell, stories that have not been told in the system. We are a 70-year-old brand, so some different types of stories you may have seen as a consumer, but we felt like these are the most 5 powerful stories that uniquely we could share with the world at this time. How did we find the 120? I think just scouring McDonald's mentions, kind of if you search the brand, there's some things that may pop up. But it took about a year for us to kind of get the story territories, narrow them down, find the directors. There's a story about Kevin. There's a story about Nadine and what they do. So the dimensions of the story and the storyteller were really important. And that's how we're here. I could say it was easy, but it wasn't. Yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This has just been a fabulous, fabulous presentation, and certainly my hat goes off to McDonald's. I just wanted to mention, I'm Cheryl Brannon. I run a nonprofit, Sister to Sister International in New York. And I have a friend that's been a past McDonald's owner, and there's a whole community in New York of McDonald's owners that happen to be black.
Yeah.
And this is a big deal now more than ever. So I really want to commend you for looking for different vehicles to communicate and to demonstrate McDonald's support for the black community and for just storytelling for the general public. So I think this was a marvelous medium. I'm happy to talk to you more about some other ideas we have in New York. And I just encourage you to continue to look for opportunities to tell our story, because guess what? Our stories need to be told.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Yes, for those of you all who don't know, at McDonald's, and as we go to the next question, we call ourselves a 3-legged stool. So it is our corporate employees, many of which are in the audience today. I am one of them, as well as our owner-operators, as our guests pointed out, as well as our supplier partners. And so we have teams within our system. We actually have our global head of diversity sitting right here, Suhaili Natal Davis. Thank you for being here. That look at both franchisee diversity, supplier diversity, as well as our diverse employee base. And so what you mentioned is probably the Black McDonald's Operator Association within that state. We have them across our entire footprint, as well as the dimensions of diversity around our Hispanic operators, our Asian-owned operators, our women-owned operators, our Pride Network in the operator community. So we do track the operators in our system that represent, again, the dimensions of diversity. What I often tell people, because we get a lot of requests, can McDonald's be here? Can McDonald's sponsor this? Can McDonald's be involved? What you see from a brand locally is probably that operator, is probably the Black McDonald's Operator Association, is probably the Women-Owned Operators Association. So it is that operator running that restaurant in your community on that corner that is making that local community impact. So it is really important while we sit here and represent the national brand for you all to really be supporting those franchises or stores in your community, because they are directly impacting what happens in that community. And many of our operators consider themselves key business leaders in their community. They consider themselves mayors of their small towns. So it's important for you all to continue to connect with them locally. But thank you for highlighting that. And we'll connect with you. All right, question in the front.
Happy Monday, everyone. Okay, happy Monday, everyone. I'm Crystal Boyce, and I'm an administrator at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. Hey. This has been amazing, amazing, amazing. I just want to say, Kevin, your Aggie family is extremely, extremely proud of what you're doing, how you're representing and telling these stories. If I could just take a moment with you to go back to when you were recording, if you could go behind the scenes, is there something that you would want to share or want people to know about this story?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was the quiet moments. It was the moments that didn't necessarily make it into the film. Just seeing the respect that the community had for Mr. Kaiser. Seeing how they shifted when he came, seeing them be uplifted by his presence, was really meaningful for me because it meant that what he was doing was genuine. It wasn't necessarily for praise. It wasn't for acknowledgement. He really had a genuine impact in the lives of these young people, in the lives of this community. And a lot of times, I take a camera to places and people do, they change, they try to perform. Mr. Kaiser is just who he is. Who he is right now is who he always is. And for me, that is just, that's really special, because that's how you really change lives. Just by what you're doing in the small moments when no one's looking. What you're doing, there you go. What you're doing in those moments where, the cameras aren't on, people aren't calling your name, but, you see something happening, and you do something about it. I had an opportunity to spend time with Mr. Kaiser in the funeral home that he works in. And, just kind of being back there, seeing how, he does what he does, just kind of being in that moment, I asked him, I said, what was it like when you had to dress the body of someone, a young person that you mentored? And it got emotional, but it didn't stay there. He's like, but I have to do something about it. I've got to take action. And not everybody does that. Sometimes we can lament, we can complain about, the things that are happening within our community, and it just stops there. Mr. Kaiser's journey and his story just inspires me to actually go take it a step further and take action. And I hope it inspires other people who watch it to do the same thing.
Thank you.
I'm going to look at my team and do a time check before we go to any additional questions in the audience? Oh, we have one in the back. Yep.
Bring you greetings from Chicago.
Oh, hey.
The side, the west side, the best side.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I went to Harrison High School on the west side. Our football coach was Herb Bias. And Herb Bias was also president of the Black McDonald's Association. Herb, he passed away a few years ago. Thank you. And one of the girls that went to high school with me worked at McDonald's. It was a part-time job for her. And it was, at that time, I'm talking about 1970s. It was the only McDonald's in our community. And so it was where we all flocked after a football game or after a homecoming game. But I watched this young lady who worked at McDonald's part-time. I saw her again probably about 2 years later. She was a line supervisor. I saw her moved out of the community, but went to McDonald's, and she was the owner. Thank you, McDonald's, for what you do for the people in our community. Thank you, sir, for the mentorship of our boys and even our girls with the cheerleading program. I look forward to whatever else McDonald's has going on, and we're going to be welcomed in that classic in Chicago sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I saw an additional hand up. Yes.
How you doing? My name is Tally McMillan. My question will be particularly for the McDonald's team. In the spirit of the good John Lewis, I'm always in good and necessary trouble. I'm a civil rights activist. I'm an Aggie, so A&T4, we know how to stand up. So I think this is a good conversation, especially as it relates to how McDonald's is, telling the stories of our communities. But my question would be, in January of 2025, McDonald's also announced that it's pulling back its efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So how can consumers, talk about the brand of telling the stories of Black Americans, but at the same time, the corporation is pulling back its DEI initiatives as it relates to Black and brown folks, or the people that are in this room?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to start, and then I'll toss it to Suhaili, our global chair of diversity. We actually didn't pull back. So I want to make sure that we as a collective audience, as I know you all are key opinion and stakeholders for us and key consumers for us as well, we did not pull back. What it was an evolution in the strategy. right? And so I think as we look at our head and look, as I talked about, the diversity across our three-legged stool, our suppliers, our owner-operators, and our corporate employees, we still have a steadfast commitment to ensure that we maintain the workforces and employee bases amongst all of those communities. So I want to make sure that we don't confuse maybe a title change to a pulling back of commitments, because none of the programs, none of the opportunities, none of what we provide to communities has shifted or downshifted as of the date that you mentioned, but it has been an evolution in the strategy. But I will toss it to Suhaili to give a little bit more detail.
Thank you so much. You said it perfectly, Nubia, and I appreciate you asking the question, and I think we need to have these honest conversations. I would urge us all to just repass the headlines. I think our collective team has been really committed to leading with transparency. And so what we shared in January was a message from our CEO and his full leadership team that actually talked about the commitment to the work and the need to evolve certain of our specific tactics in order to continue to focus on the work of building the three legs of the stool, as Nubia said. And so, all I can say is, please read past the headlines. I think all the information is there. Our commitment to leading with transparency. We publish our data every year. For transparency, so you can see how we're faring in the spaces of diverse representation across those stools. That's something we're committing to and something that you can find. But also, I say judge us by our actions, right? Like, see where we're still showing up, see where we still are. Whenever sometimes I see people at outings and they said, oh, wow, I didn't realize you were still there. I'm still here. We still have a very robust team, and we still have a lot of work to do. And McDonald's has done this work for decades, regardless of what it's called, before it was had the label of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we will continue to do the work of building a robust three-legged stool, regardless of the label that is placed on the work.
Thank you. Before we close, I just want to again toss it to Kevin and Clarence and Nadine. Is there anything that we didn't get to address or anything you want to mention before we round out our time together today?
No, for me, it's just kind of reiterating, the takeaway from this film for me was, we all have communities that we're going to go back to after we leave here, and just to be thinking about what we can do to contribute to that community and impact the lives of people who are in that community. To me, that was what drew me to Mr. Kaiser's work, and it's what I continue to do as a filmmaker. I try to use film as a tool to impact the community that I live in locally, beyond just, where the film goes globally. What can I do locally with my neighbors to make an impact?
I just want to take a moment to introduce someone that I had the pleasure of bringing with me. During the documentary, you probably seen the part where at my funeral home we service a lot of the children that was in our program. And here today, I wanted her to be with us because it was her daughter that was killed, and that's Yolanda Dortch. And she's a part of us putting the Midwest Classic back, and she wanted a piece of the action to be a part of it because she sees the importance of children, and that's through experience. So God bless you, and I appreciate you attending.
Thank you, Yolanda, for being here with us. Nadine, any final thoughts from you?
I guess, the takeaway of the film that nobody has seen yet, because it's not done, is just, for an Olympic athlete, she's so focused on the win, the gold medal. For myself as a filmmaker, I'm so focused on, completing a film or getting an award or whatever. So it's just the idea that it's really not the win. It's really like the spiritual resilience and the community that's built up along the way. And so I'm hoping that once the film is done, it's really a meditation on that, on beyond any medal or win. It's really like the community that lifts you up along the journey to get there. That is the reward. Yeah.
Thank you. So I hope you all see at your tables or at your seats there is a gift from us. But this is an ask-offer exercise, okay? So we gave you all a gift bag, and what we're asking for is, in return, is to share your McDonald's stories with us. As we talked about, we've been on a year-long journey of aggregating really impactful stories, whether that be people who came into our restaurants, whether it be stories of crew, or impactful franchisees, or even what McDonald's represents and the commitments we need to continue to maintain within our footprint. So please share those with us. We would love to hold on to them and keep them. We may use them a year from now. You may be back here and see your story featured on stage. But also, we will be sharing all 5 docu-shorts soon. So please look forward to this content in late fall on YouTube. Clarence's story, Quenisha's story, a story about operators and the next generation of operators and their family, a story about a young woman who used free Wi-Fi in our restaurants to get her education, and a story again about just how we impact our system and our communities writ large. So look forward to this content. Please share it on our behalf if it feels impactful and resonant with you. We would love that. And I have to say, I love how you said there's a Clarence Kaiser, there's a Coach Clarence in all of our lives. Mine was a Coach Thomas. I want you all to think about the charge we saw in the film, if not you, then who? I often say, if not now, then when, right? And so continue to take the charge that Coach Clarence gave us, as well as his colleagues, and continue to impact your community. But thank you all so much for being with us today to hear stories from America's Dining Room.